Okay, in today's video I wanted to talk about this situation that came up with an old toilet flange that I was trying to fix. So, took off the toilet and repaired the flooring. A bunch of the subfloors had to be replaced here, not because of the toilet, but because of the nearby bathtub. And then when I went to put the toilet back in, the toilet flange bolts were just screwed into the wood. So they were just lag screws into the wood. And the wood had rotted out all around where the screws were. So looking at this old flange, this is a cast iron flange, probably from the 1950s. Potentially there's some oakum and lead involved in the seal between the flange and the pipe. One option is to cut out the cast iron flange and install new PVC or ABS piping. Another option would be just to cut off the top with a metal grinder and install a cast iron replacement flange that looks like this. There's a link to this flange below on Amazon. Another option would be to use a toilet repair flange kit like this one that's able to fit around the flange in place so you don't have to move it. There's a link to this kit below. In my case, the old cast iron flange was actually in surprisingly good shape, so I decided to just leave it there. The issue then became that the floor flange that has the holes for the flange bolts wasn't going to fit around the cast iron flange, so I wouldn't be able to screw it into the floor. So I ended up deciding to reinstall the toilet the same way that it was before, with wood lag toilet bolts that would just go back into the wood and into the car decking below the plywood. So a lot of the times you'll see these used for toilets that have 4 holes. They'll have 2 around the flange where they normally would go, and then they'd have 2 forward of those positions. But in this case, this is an old house. I haven't really seen this done before. It's probably not entirely correct, but in this case, it's been working great. It's just one of those situations you run into in an old house where you just gotta make something work that's not ideal. Okay, so I just transferred the markings to the sheet vinyl flooring. So again, just using this flange, I marked a spot on either side, and I just use a straight edge across the center to make sure they're both meeting that. So this is actually the correct one and that one's incorrect. And now ready to drill. And to put these in, you're just going to screw on the little hex head. And then once you've got that, you can just use a socket wrench or driver to put them in. These were the 2.5 inch bolts. I ended up taking these out with a pair of pliers and putting in the 3.5 inch bolts because these were too short. And here is the toilet with the wax ring installed and sitting on top of the bolts. It's a good idea to leave them a little longer than you think at first, because you can always screw them further down, but it's hard to get them to come back up.